Good morning, civics scholars of second hour. Hey, I'm sorry I was not able to make it to class today. So Mr. Linderman is here, and hopefully he's playing this clip. And it's a pretty straightforward day. If you check out the announcements on Google Classroom, you can see there we're going to watch CNN 10 here for a few minutes, and then get into some parliamentary democracy versus presidential democracy work as we sort of wrap up our first unit here. If you're looking forward, if you're someone that likes to look forward a little bit to what we're going to be doing in the next couple of blocks, like I said, today we're going to be doing some parliamentary versus presidential democracy work, and I'll talk about that when CNN 10 is done. And then we are going to be starting to review over the last couple of blocks on Thursday of this week. And there's a review packet posted for you because we're planning on taking a unit test next week, Tuesday. And I know some of you like to prepare early, and that's phenomenal. That's great. And I'll walk through that review packet too as well, because that's something you'll probably have some time to get working on today. So, yeah, let's get going here. There's nothing to wait for. I'm going to pop open CNN 10, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hopefully the volume's up and loud enough. And here is our main man, Coy. Uh-oh. It's going, promise. Or it's not going to go. We'll just watch it on the small screen.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm Corey Wire. Thanks for making us part of your day at CNN 10. Let's kick off our show with a discussion on the 4-day work week. Sounds good, right, teachers? Is it possible, though? Is it better? The concept of the 4-day work week is simple. Get paid the same, but only work 4 days a week. A growing list of companies are testing shorter work weeks to avoid employee burnout, especially as the United States is faced with a tight labor market and employers are doing more to attract talent. Workers are burned out from the pandemic and are putting greater value on personal time. Quiet quitting and the great resignation are popular terms in offices all across the country. This week, 28 companies in the US and Canada began a 6-month pilot program of shortened work weeks in partnership with a nonprofit called 4-Day Week Global. And this isn't the first program of its kind. Companies that participated in the pilot program in Britain say they saw no loss in productivity during a similar experiment, and in some cases, they saw significant improvement. Employees say they have more time to spend with their families, to invest in hobbies, and to sleep. Now, all this, they say, boosts their well-being, therefore making them more productive at work. Many companies that try a 4-day work week, they say they'll likely keep them going. But it's also important to note that the 4-day work week is not the norm, and for some industries, it's not even possible. Companies in manufacturing and service industries and restaurants, they need to hire more people for more shifts, which would cut profits and ultimately impact the consumers. Let's hear more now from CNN Chief Business Correspondent Christine Romans.
5 days pay, 4 days work. A 4-day work week.
4-day work week. Sounds amazing, right?
Shorter work week, same pay,
More than 180 companies and thousands of employees around the globe have joined a 6-month pilot program to see how a 4-day work week could function for their businesses. And so far, the experience has been
Positive.
Chaotic. We didn't know what we were doing. We were all over the shop.
It sounds like an idea fresh out of the pandemic, a Silicon Valley dream, right? Not quite. The reality is that the desire for a shorter work week goes back a long time, a really long time.
In the 1970s, it was fairly popular, and people were talking about the crisis of leisure, and then it faded from view for a long time.
I guess the tide has gone out and we've seen just how strapped we all were with our work lives and home lives and lack of balance there.
The pandemic turbocharged the 4-day week because employers started, having to figure out some solutions to the stress and burnout. But the other thing is remote work, because one of the things that we hear from management is that remote work taught management it could trust its employees.
Okay, so let's talk about the basic parameters then of the 4-day week global pilot program.
The requirements are no reduction in pay, so all employees are still getting their 5 days pay, and there must be a meaningful reduction in work time. So the vast majority are going to a 4-day, 32-hour week. You've got to figure out how to do it so that you can maintain your productivity and your output and so forth.
Why did you guys decide to try this?
There was enough evidence out there that suggested that companies, particularly like Kickstarter, can successfully transition to a 4-day work week while maintaining or improving productivity. But we're also looking at the way that work is changing given the pandemic. We moved to fully remote, and we just saw people that were burnt out and tired. We retaining our employees, making it easier to hire employees, and making sure our employees were happy at home is really why we decided to pursue it.
The first 6 weeks navigating those was really, really hard. After that first weekend of us doing 4 days and then, having either the Friday or the Monday off, I thought, what have I done? I'm going to ruin this business without even trying.
But now fast forward, you had the mindset shift, you figured out the handovers.
Yeah.
People came in, the workers were fighting for it to keep the 4-day work week. And how are you now?
We're doing amazing now. By the time we had kind of got into that 4th month, it really started to go together. And one of the big benefits we've seen is just the perspective and almost kind of freshness that people bring to work with them because of those 4 days. And that 5th day really giving them time to do stuff they want to do.
10-second trivia. What's the name of this famous clock tower? The Elizabeth Tower, Big Ben, Parliament Tower, or the Tower of London? Correct answer is the Elizabeth Tower. Big Ben is the nickname for a tower bell. Time now to travel across the pond to the City of London. Their world-famous clock is getting a facelift. The Elizabeth Tower is so much more than a timepiece or piece of architecture. It's a symbol of British freedom and democracy. It's been under construction since 2017 and will cost £80 million when all said and done. Let's go inside now and get a glimpse of London that not many people get to see.
It's probably the most famous clock tower in the world. A symbol of London, British democracy and freedom that needed saving urgently. Since 2017, Big Ben's bombs have been almost entirely silent, and until recently, the Elizabeth Tower has been hidden behind scaffolding, undergoing an £80 million makeover to fix leaking roofs and crumbling stonework, among other issues.
We've replaced lots of stone, we've replaced all of the clock face glass, we've taken off all of the cast iron up at the roof level and repaired it, put it back on.
International tourists have never been admitted inside the tower, but Parliament's estates historian Dr. Mark Collins can take us 399 steps to the top and show us what's changed.
We have one of the cast iron dials which has 324 pieces of mouth-blown opal glass. We found that it wasn't actually black paint on the exterior, but it was a very vivid Prussian blue, which has now been returned.
New energy-efficient LED lights will illuminate the clocks. They'll be able to change colour to support causes or festivals. Hundreds of cogs, gears, and chains that turn the dial hands and operate the bell hammers have been removed and cleaned.
This is the striking train, which is Big Ben.
When the mechanism and bell are reacquainted, Big Ben can strike again, the renovation will be complete.
Central one is Big Ben, the hour bell, which weighs over 13 tons, and then the 4 quarter bells give the tube, the Westminster quarters, which are taken from Handel's Messiah.
Shortly after it was installed, a crack appeared in the bell, but instead of having it replaced, the bell was turned, the hammer size reduced, and it has tolled with a deep, sonorous E note ever since.
Such a serious note after the quarter chime.
After the devastating wars of the 20th century, Big Ben's bongs took on new meaning.
First of all, it plays its part in a ceremony on Armistice Day, in the remembrance of the thousands who died in the First War. When we come to the Second World War, it's heard around the world, it's broadcast by the BBC, and people hear it, and they know that there is still one free country left in Europe.
At the very top of the tower, beyond the gilding that has been restored and replaced, unique 360-degree views across the city, down onto Parliament Square in Westminster Abbey, and over the Thames in South London.
The clock tower has become such a feature of London. It has a festive air, it's got a sort of toy-like charm to it, and I think now that it's returned to this sort of frivolity that it had, with all the gilding replaced and the new colour scheme, I think it's looking very special indeed.
And for today's 10 out of 10, a tremendous way to plan an autumn trip across the country to see unbelievable sights. Nature lovers are falling in love with a guide that shows exactly when and where to see the charm of the changing fall colors in every state. You can pumpkin spice things up a bit with precision using the interactive map at SmokyMountains.com. Hurry though, because when winter comes, this lovely time of year leaves. Time now for a special shout out to Midwest City Middle School in Midwest City, Oklahoma. We're not going to leave you hanging. Thanks for subscribing and commenting on our YouTube page. I'm Coy Wire. This is CNN 10, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Now that you're all better citizens, because we're all more well-informed. That doesn't even sound right, but that's okay. All right, so here we go. This is our last kind of block of learning new material. We've done the political philosophers. We've done different types of governments around the world a little bit. We've done purposes of government. And now we want to wrap up with 2 types of government that we see as more prominent around the world than others. One is the one we have, which we call a presidential democracy. And then there's another one called a parliamentary democracy, which is very, very similar to ours. And we want to compare and contrast those two so that we see the similarities and that we see the differences between those 2 types of government. So we're going to watch a quick clip here on the parliamentary and presidential democracies, which does a great job of laying out the simple differences and similarities between those 2 types of governments. So pay close attention here, because you'll be able to use this video, which is posted on Google Classroom, in case you need a little bit of extra help going back through and working on the stuff that we're going to be working on here in the next few minutes in the block.
This is an explanation of the 2 main systems of democratic government, presidential and parliamentary. Around the world, there are many variations of these 2 types, but we're going to focus on the United States and the United Kingdom because they exist on the opposite ends of the democratic spectrum, and they've been the most influential to other countries around the world. Every 4 years, the American people elect a president. But it's not a direct election where the winner of the overall nationwide vote wins the White House. The U.S. is the only country to have an electoral college system, where each state has a number of electors based on the size of its relative population. population. Every state, except Maine and Nebraska, awards all of their electors to the candidate that receives the most votes in that state, with an overall 270 electoral votes needed to win. This more complicated system exists to give the states a little more control of the process. The Constitution limits the president to just 2 4-year terms in office. In the UK, the people directly elect a representative from their geographic constituency, of which there are a total of 650 throughout England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. These representatives make up the House of Commons in Parliament. The leader of whichever party wins the most seats in this general election, which occurs every 5 years, becomes the Prime Minister, who has no term limits. The Prime Minister then forms government. The members of Parliament from parties not in power are called the opposition.
All right, this thing's not working.
Once inaugurated, the President appoints 15 cabinet officers to run the
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have Mr. Linderman pause me and play this video. All right, now that the video is done, I want to show you then what you need to be working on here. So if you pop open classwork, as you can see here, there's a parliamentary versus presidential assignment here. That video, again, is posted right here for you if you need to go back, because it has a lot of the information that you'll be able to use. But if you pop open this PDF, it's titled Presidential versus Parliamentary Systems of Government. What you're going to be doing is using the information in here, and you need to read this, because yesterday a bunch of students told me they couldn't find answers, and then I would go back and point out flat out where like the answers were, and it was very apparent that they were just looking to try to cherry pick and pluck out the stuff. And if you just read through it, you'll run into all of the answers very clearly as to what needs to be filled out on this worksheet. So it's just a 2-page reading. You've got plenty of time to go through it. So go ahead and read through that first. When you're done with that, you can either choose this Word document or this PDF. And when you open that up, this should appear. And it's pretty simple. It says, after reading the handout that I just showed you, complete the following chart. So it's sort of, it's a chart. So on the left-hand side here, you're going to answer about a presidential democracy. And the right-hand side, you're going to answer about a parliamentary democracy. And you're going to answer about what these certain issues are here and how both sides, both types of governments deal with these issues. So, for instance, the first one, separation of powers. In that little article, that handout, the first thing it talks about, after it gives a little brief history, is how they separate powers amongst the branches of government. So when you figure out how the presidential system does it, you write that over here in a couple sentences. Then you write over here on the other side how a parliamentary democracy handles separation of powers. Then you move to the election of the head of government. And like that video said, and as the reading will say, the head of government in a presidential democracy is the president. In a parliamentary democracy, it's a prime minister. So you write those two things or those couple sentences about how those types of government handle that issue. And you go down, you do that for all these different issues on the first page. Then when you get to the second page, it says identify the advantages of each system of government. The first 2 bullet points. The first one says characteristics, not characteristic, plural, a couple of them, of a presidential system that I feel are desirable. So things that you think are good about a presidential system. Put them in here. And again, we're not doing our 8th grade middle school answers where we just write one word. We write sentences. So 2 or 3 different characteristics, things about a presidential system that you like. Right here then, some things about a parliamentary system that you think are desirable or you think are good. Same thing moving down here, presidential system that you feel are undesirable, so aren't good. And then here's some parliamentary system things that you feel are undesirable, so not good. So what you need to be doing is filling that that chart out completely, full, complete answers. When you are done with that, if you finish that up, you can then move on to this Unit 1 review packet, which is for the test, which will be next Tuesday for you guys. In that packet here, you need to write out the definition for all these terms, which you have in your notes and in your homework and stuff that we've done. You need to use these 4 political philosophers, and it just says what was their ideal form of government. So you just need to add that with Hobbes, Locke, Marx, and Rousseau. Then the 5 purposes of government, and give an example of each. So, for instance, maintain order was one of them. Well, police, right? We have the police to maintain order. You only have to do 4 of these bullet points. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. We only talked about 4. Then the 5 legal duties of citizens and the 5 responsibilities of citizens. Go over here, list those out. Then there's a quiz on here. That's not going to be great as a quiz. It's just a quiz that's good for review. So you need to go through that quiz, do the matching section here, and then the short answer stuff, as well as the fill in the blank. Just read the directions carefully, and it'll walk you through that. And then there's this parliamentary and presidential comparison that you basically just worked on. Fill that out. And then some true false stuff about presidential versus parliamentary democracy here. So again, you've got 2 things that you can be working on. Oh, my lights just went out. That's okay. So again, start with the presidential versus parliamentary work. Use that reading, or go back and let me get these lights on. Use that reading, or if you need to go back and listen to the video, that's fine. And then get working on this review packet. If you do have any questions about what you need to be working on today, I'll be back later today. I'll be back by advisory. So you can go ahead and pop in here, ask me questions, email me, get a hold of me for whatever. But for sure, this presidential versus parliamentary, that is due on Thursday. So what you need to be doing is working individually. You can pop open your AirBuds, EarPods, whatever you got to work on that. And then plug away, use this time wisely in class, and you should be all set and ready to go for Thursday. Have a great day.